Hi there, it's Ian here, and you're watching Grumpy Opinions, the show where I'm going to tell you all about what I think of films, TV shows, games, and life in general. Let's get on with the show.
WandaVision is a Disney Plus show all about characters from the MCU stuck in a magical sitcom prison. Episode 7, Breaking the Fourth Wall, is the naughties episode of the series. That's the aughts for Americans, basically the 2000s. And so, understandably, the comedy is all a bit handheld and meta with literal fourth wall breaks as the characters monologue to the audience. And Wanda's having a pretty of a bad downer of a day, and she doesn't want to get up, she's depressed and she can't quite focus on things. And that's making the furniture literally change, reverting back and forth between the different time states of the alternate sitcoms. And she's in no kind of good headspace to look after the boys, who are kind of sad because Vision's not at home. It's all a big daddy's had to leave for a little while metaphor. And Agnes pops over to look after them, and they end up really liking that because, as Tommy says,
"You're quiet, Agnes. On the inside."
Which is kind of ominous if you think about it, since he's a telepath.
Meanwhile,
Vision wakes up at what used to be the edge of town, surrounded by this new circus that used to be the S.W.O.R.D base, and wouldn't you know, he gets mistaken for a little clown boy, and told he should speak to the escape artist, who of course is Darcy. And she ends up mistaking Vision's attempts to talk to her as an attempt to chat her up. And finally he manages to use his wibbly brain zap on her, and she's immediately like, "Oh, okay, let's go." And then they're on the road in the magic van, and she tells him a super quick version of his life and death story. But as they drive further and further out of town, they keep getting impeded by things. And then eventually Vision remembers that he's a superhero and phases through the top of the vehicle and flies away.
meanwhile,
Outside the Hex, Jimmy and Monica meet up with a bunch of S.W.O.R.D types, and they've managed to get her Lunar rover armoured the way she wanted it, and a spacesuit as well. And wouldn't you know, it doesn't work. And Monica has to abandon the buggy before it gets turned into part Perseverance and part Ford Cortina. Now, she's a plucky lass, so instead of giving up hope, she literally just rips her gloves off and her helmet and just goes running straight into the Hex. And somehow she manages to get through it. And when she comes out the other side, she has kind of wibbly wobbly vision and funny eyes, and I'm pretty sure that will not at all be important later on and won't mean a thing. And she ends up charging around to Wanda's place, and Wanda's not happy to see her, and they have a bit of a standoff outside, but turns out Monica's semi-immune to the magic, and Wanda isn't entirely willing to plant that final killing blow, so just then Agnes happens by and takes Wanda away to Agnes's house, and Monica just fails to keep up with them somehow. And when they get there, Wanda's concerned because the kids are nowhere to be seen, but Agnes says nah, they're probably in the basement playing. So Wanda wanders down to the basement, which looks like a spooky castle, and finds some Necronomicon looking book, and Agnes walks in cuddling Mr. Scratchy and introduces herself.
The name's Agatha Harkness. Lovely to finally meet you, dear.
And then she does a purple magic on Wanda's eyes. And then we get kind of the Munsters style intro sequence all about how Yep, she was behind it all.
And I killed Sparky too.
You wee bism. Oh, and midway through the credits scene, we get to see that Monica actually did find the house, and then Quicksilver came up behind her and gave her a fright. So what did I think? Well, I thought this was quite an interesting one for me, because I actually never really watched that many naughty sitcoms, but I'm pretty sure all this talking head stuff was supposed to put you in mind of shows like The Office and Parks and Rec. I think that's another one that's quite similar and does that sort of stuff. But yeah, beyond that, I really don't know. It's not my era of comedy. But stylistically, it all came across as fairly sound. I got the sense of what it was trying to do. And it also made sense with moments like where Darcy manages to comedically punch the big circus strongman, and later on her stopping at all these roadblocks. You see, these moments were a bit silly, but it made sense if you thought about that even though she was freed from the spell, they're still in the Hex, and the Hex is kind of semi-constraining them with sitcom magic, because it seems like only occasionally people actually manage to break free of that. And this made it all the funnier when Vision sort of realised he's suddenly doing a talking head, and he just got up and took off the microphone and walked away. And that's interesting because, yeah, that seemed to be happening at exactly the same time as he was sitting in the car, which again, it doesn't make sense. It's a conceit of a sitcom that people at some bizarre point are apparently being interviewed. But yeah, and they do these comic asides to camera. And I reckon this is one of the reasons this episode's called Breaking the Fourth Wall. Now, I guess that most people understand the term Breaking the Fourth Wall, but just in case you don't, it's an old theatre expression that literally describes the fourth wall, which is in any scene or a play, would actually be the audience. It would be the edge of the stage. And on a TV, that's the screen. The fourth wall is the screen. So a fourth wall break is literally when someone calls attention to the fact that this is all fake. It's artifice or fiction, and the character talks to the audience or does something else that's slightly Brechtian and unusual. And as well as those comic asides, the whole episode was about the fact that Agatha, as we now know her name is actually the power behind it all, which means Monica was wrong.
It's Wanda. It's all Wanda.
Wonder if she's been wrong about anything else. But yeah, anyway, Agatha breaks the fourth wall and tells Wanda all about it. Now, by the way, just to say, well done to the show folk, because they actually did seed a lot of this through the show. There have been clever little instances, some good scenes. A few of them I pointed out previously about the fact that Agatha was actually the villain, but then there was a few other ones in there to try and convince you she was just a person caught in the town. And then last week, as I said, obviously, there was her literally dressed as a witch and cackling. But just in case you thought she was a nice witch, remember, she literally killed a puppy. Just in case you didn't realise that she is bad. But otherwise, I did have a few issues. I mean, first off, there was definitely a sense of dithering this week. The show seems to be in absolutely no hurry trying to get to the end, despite there only being 9 episodes. I mean, did we really need 3 separate scenes of Wanda looking at the objects in the house changing from one thing to another? I mean, I'd got the point by the time Agatha came round to pick up the kids. And also, while some of the Darcy and Vision stuff was fun and the talking heads moments, they did feel over the top and silly. I mean, even if it makes sense in the universe for these things to happen, like, why didn't Darcy just drive round the traffic lights? Why are they observing road laws in a magical situation where they're just desperately trying to get back out? I mean, why aren't they hitting it at 100 miles an hour down that road, driving on the grass and just not caring? Yeah, that sort of stuff just kind of bugged me. Also, there was some really slapdash bits and bobs, like how Darcy realises who Vision is while she's actually looking the other way and has never actually had a moment of, oh, it's you. And we've never established that when somebody gets zapped out of it, they actually have any memories left. Because, yeah, we've only really seen that situation in Norm, but it just seemed really odd. Like, I felt like she should turn around and went, oh, yo, it is you, or something. But no, she's literally looking the opposite way. Or that moment where Jimmy and Monica get the email from Darcy about Hayward's evil plans, which I did work out 4 episodes ago. And Jimmy says,
someone has to tell Wanda.
No, why would you do that, Jimmy? Why would you want to tell the psycho magic user who may or may not be under evil influence? I mean, why is that your first thought? I mean, is Jimmy an idiot? Is he impaired in some way? No, he's not. It's just bad writing. And Monica, oh dear Monica, who's been terrible all season, whose character hasn't worked all season. She actually finally gets a couple of good moments in here. You know, she meets her pal, Major Goodner, who might be someone from the comics, I don't know, but I presume that's the technician she was talking about. You know, it's nice that Monica has pals. And she makes this comment, though, about loyalty.
My mother would appreciate your loyalty. She's not the only one we're loyal to, Captain.
Wait, what is that supposed to mean? You know, that Hayward took over, like, secretly in charge? We don't know anything about that. You know, that he actually has some kind of rebel uprising in S.W.O.R.D that's against him? We don't know anything about that. None of this has been established. And it's just a really weird line. I mean, it's odd. It's a line that almost implies that there's a lot more going on here that we just don't know about. And that would be stuff that would be interesting because it would explain what the hell is happening. But yeah, anyway. I actually didn't have an issue with the scene of her trying to get into the hex. It was totally fine. It made total sense. It was really entertaining right up until here. Now, I've said it before, Monica's an idiot. And really at this point we're seeing that she's probably actually insane because you know what the definition of insanity is.
Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change.
Well, right, she stuck her hand into the hex and then tried it again and got sucked in and spat out, and both times it messed with her DNA, and she had no way to stop herself from getting zapped into like Wanda's 19 whatever it was as Vision at the time. And now for no reason at all, she decides, even despite the fact that her magically armoured car couldn't get in without getting hexed, somehow she can get in and not be harmed by it because she believes in herself.
I can get through.
And something else you might have missed, and I wouldn't blame you if you did, because it was quite hard to hear. But as she's running in, they're literally playing lines from Captain Marvel in the background, you know, as she's sort of powering through everything. Now, that's because obviously she met Captain Marvel, and I'll be interested because they might drop something later and saying, aha, has something to do with Captain Marvel did something that's allowed you to do this, but I'm not sure about that. But other than that, it's all lines about trying hard, and, you know, if you try hard, you'll succeed, and don't be held back. But she's persevering through it, knowing that last time it didn't work. Which reminds me.
Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity? Oh, Jesus. Oh, fuck you!
So yeah, anyway, we're here again with an episode where the bad kind of outweighs the good, and again, it's one where it's almost like there's two different writing teams. A bunch of funny people making sitcom stuff, and a bunch of people writing a show that's just really, really badly put together. Now yeah, it could be there's a lot to look forward to. I mean, next episode might well be some background on Agatha, because they did do that with Monica. So maybe they'll spend a little bit of time showing us what she was up to behind the scenes, or her history. Maybe not, though. Maybe it'll just be about Monica and Quicksilver fixing things, or, you know, if he goes goody, or maybe he's going to be a baddie, we don't know yet. And there's still no resolution on the Hayward's big thing, whatever that is. And it's guaranteed it's going to be something bad. But anyway, this show, it's certainly going somewhere. I just don't know if it's going anywhere good or bad at this point. Still 2 episodes to go. So till next time, you've been watching My Grumpy Opinions. And a special thanks to all my patrons, and most especially my top tier patrons, Judith Coloma, Laurie Laporte, and Michelle Forbes. Thanks guys, everyone keep it real, keep safe, and take care of yourselves. Bye bye.